Rabbi Soloveitchik in his work, Uvikashtem Misham, recently translated into English, there it says that on Friday evening, the Jew is longing for God. It's like Shir Hashirim, it's like the Song of Songs, where on Friday evening, God knocks on the door and He's more available to us. And the question is, are we going to run to answer God's call or not? That's what Shabbat is all about. It's about longing. The Rebbe of Slonim said that, he says, Shabbat vayi nafash. On Shabbat, vayi nafash, you take a deep breath and you get an extra soul. And the Rebbe of Slonim says, that krecht, that sigh that you take and say, all my work is done and now I'm just going to rest a little bit. That's a krecht. It's a sigh. It reflects some moaning and groaning, but it also reflects that longing for God, a longing for God and to be with Him. That's what the extra soul is. It's the time to take that deep breath on Friday night and throughout Shabbos and say, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. I appreciate God. I'm longing for God. There's a hug from God that I get on Shabbos. A third meaning of Shabbos, based on the mystical writings and readings. A fourth meaning, a fourth approach as well. When God created the world, great Kabbalists and the mystics and the philosophers all have to understand, well, how could He create a world? Maloch al haaretz kvodo, God contains the entire universe. Where is the room for us? There's no room. Aha! There must be a concept called tzimtzum of God to contain Himself. And that is expressed most beautifully by Shabbat. On Shabbat, God said, I'm not going to create anymore. Let me create a space in which existence can be. And in that sense, He models what we should do. We can be so driven to conquer the earth as we must. To work the land, to protect the land. There's a lot of work to be done. 6 days we need to do our work. It's a mitzvah. It's a commandment to do our job in this world. But don't get carried away. Don't think that that the work can be done totally by you, that you can save the world. You are only one individual. You have your limitations. Even God modeled this for us by stopping. One day, He stops and allows room for otherness. Rabbi Soloveitchik also said that, in the one hand, we look at God and we say, wow, God is so amazing, I feel like nothing. On the other hand, God calls on us to be something, to try to be like God and imitate Him and stand up and do something. During the week, the emphasis, Rabbi Soloveitchik might argue, is on being like God, to try to take over the world, do something with this world. But on Shabbat, we have to remember our other role, to sit back, to recognize our true role in relationship to God, that we're nothing. This tension between being nothing and something is reflected in Shabbat. Shabbat, we remember, it's okay. Some of the things may not be done yet. Some of our work may not yet be done. But that's okay. We don't have to do it all. We can take a deep breath, as God did Himself on Shabbat. Finally, it's another idea in Kabbalah and mystical writings, that Shabbat is like Yosef. Now Yosef, who was Yosef? Yosef was a holy person, but he was out there in a very unholy world. He was out there in Egypt, a difficult and challenging place. A Jew on Shabbat tries to be that island, to be like Joseph, an island in a sea of a lack of spirituality. On Shabbat, we try to get in touch with that spirituality. How can a person live like a tzaddik? How can a person get back to the place before the original sin, before the golden calf, before the eating of the original fruit? How can a person get back to that holy place? That's Shabbat, to restore ourselves to that original pristine place. And that's why we change our clothes on Shabbat. Let's try to be different. Let's try to be someone else. Let's try to be like that person that we were before we defiled ourselves, before we became like all the other Egyptians around us. Let's try to be like Joseph on Shabbat, to be holy in a sea of weekdays, in a sea of mundaneness and plainness. In summary, Shabbat, what is Shabbat? Shabbat is a temple in time. It's a temple in time that we can find even in Galut, says this Parsha. Even when Chitasig Yad Ger V'Toshav Imach, even when others have taken over, we can find a temple in time. Even in Galut, we can find a holy place and a holy time. Number two, we need to be able to see God as He is in His totality, not simply as my provider. I need to look at God from a less needy perspective on this Shabbat. Number three, Shabbat, we need to celebrate all the good that's in the world. Stop being so negative. Find those things we can celebrate in this world. Number four, on Shabbat, we can find that extra closeness to God. But it requires that we answer the knocking of God's knock on our door, and we go running and get in touch with the longing that we have to be close with an infinite being. Number five, Shabbat is a time to step back and recognize our limitations. And this will help us relax, to not feel like we have to conquer it all and change it all. There's a time for that, and a time to accept our limitations. Finally, it's a time to try to find a pure place, a pure time. To imagine something that would be even greater and even more pristine. To imagine ourselves had we not made the various errors in life that we inevitably do. That's Shabbat. That's part of the meaning of Shabbat. Bechukotai tishmoru umikdashi tirau. The Torah tells us that no matter what the conditions may be, we can find a holy time. And yes, we can create a holy space. And with that, we can be redeemed even from the most difficult times. All we need to do is to desire it, to want it, to be able to hold back, and to be able, when we hear that knock at the door, the knock from God Himself, to be able to answer the knock and say, yes, here I am. Take a deep breath and say, thank you. Thank you for all the good things. There may be other challenges in life, but today, I'm going to focus on the glory of you, God, as you sit on your throne, and then the wonderful things that I do have to be thankful for here on this earth. I want to thank Jason Lefkowitz of the JSL publicity for providing this outstanding opportunity for us each to share and join together each week. Next week we'll be talking about being prepared, lessons in Parashat Bamidbar and Shavuot. Thank you very much.